invested the extra time to get over there and is not going to be able to find too much for it. As speaking of not finding things, no Harpoon joy there for Xiu on this top side. And Lucid will be able to finish this one off. So Lucid coming out of the gates real strong here on this Neferi.
Yeah, gonna move down to try and cover his red side. I think he's concerned that maybe Ona led the charge. If you look at the bot lane priority that T1 has, to be expected, I think he'd be a little concerned his camps could get challenged by Ona pressure for reset, so we'll move through to secure those. Yeah, it's a pretty big advantage to gain. That ward that was in the river, spotting Ona, making a big difference, and Lucid having an initial jump on the play, and really, you know, Pantheon is such a level 3 champion, having all 3 abilities in your kit, whereas for the Neferi, level 2, having your flip and your Q more than enough to keep the fight with.
Yep. Lucid not too worried about the untargetability when all you want to do is hit your opposition. So that's working out very, very well. Bouncing on over, taking down some of these Krugs, and we'll head over towards this red buff, just maximizing the amount of red buff time. I do like that one a lot.
So in a situation like this, we see 2 out of the time, all things considered, there for the side of D+, because when a jungler doesn't have camps to take, when a jungler doesn't have much to do with his time, he'll gank.
Yep.
So you have to be a little bit concerned about that. Zirin Jin, 2 win streak for T1, but a big loss streak for everyone else.
Yep, no one else seems to be able to make this work, but T1 with Gumushi and Faker are pretty good at making Azir and Jin work. I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to figure out why that is the case. As Beryl and Aiming trying to fight back here against Keria and Gumushi, and we're getting a demonstration as to why this Jin has been working out. It's just having a pretty good time down here in this bottom lane, even though Aiming is keeping up. And I think if the Kai'Sa is keeping up in this lane, you're probably not too upset about it. We know that Aiming is known to pop off later on in the game on these Kai'Sa picks if he gets his hands on it.
Yeah, definitely a pick where you're just trying to invest in Aiming with the king. Seen so often as him being the gold king.
Yeah.
I'd say kind of look at the jungle with how things have panned out. The prio from T1 really working hard to secure the skull crabs means Ona isn't really behind, but I think you really have to examine it from the lens of if that invade had been successful and he had the prio in his lanes, Lucid would be out the game. Oh man.
Orin has just been obliterated by Xiu here, gets the scrap shield, flash forward and lands the Harpoon. There's a solo kill. And that is first blood. Man, I'm so used to it being Gwen doing that, but it's Xiu this time.
Rumble matchup is a bit of a risky one, you know. You want to be up close to your target as Gwen, and you can just get cooked by the Rumble. Xiu finding a bit of big advantage there. Oh, nice dodge from the stun there from Lucid.
Yeah. Going to be landing a few of these daggers as well as Lucid, thinking that his prize is going to be this blue buff. And that is due to the fact that Showmaker has all of that priority in this mid lane, but bot side priority is also there for T1, so a little bit of an honest engage here as Keria dives forward. They get on top of Lucid. He's lit on fire. Faker free hitting now with these Sand Soldiers, but it's Keria that's the one in trouble, and with that Spirit Rush, Showmaker is able to take him down. Feral now looking for Faker as Lucid in amongst it. Gumushi the target, but Ona goes down first, and that's another kill, this time going over to Aiming. It's a disaster for T1. That's even feats of warfare already completed for DK.
Some great value there from the Ahri coming through. We're gonna get a replay of that topside play first. She was close to overheating. Doran goes in to try and clear the wave, but just gets beaten down. See Xiu calling it already. Follows with the flash, gets the Harpoon. Beautifully played. King's flash as well.
And that must sound pretty good as a teammate, right? You've got your top laner that says, oh, my opponent has no flash. And then you kill Fate just as it, now he's dead.
And here, so I think a big thing was they focused initially on a Lucid, but Lucid is such a hard target to pin down. Faker's not going to go for the shuffle as a result. He's just trying to get some damage in, but Showmaker, using that triple value to take out Keria, so much power from the level 6 up. They save, so they know they got an advantage bot lane. We don't need to do anything in the solo lanes, just make sure we don't die. Pretty respectful play from D+.
I was going to say, like, intelligent, respectful, map-aware play from my D+ this week. What the heck? Another Zenith blade this time. It goes wide there as Beryl is unable to find it onto Faker, who does have the ultimate, so it was never really in too much danger there, but we know Beryl just likes pressing the button. Only going to be taking his Gromp here towards the bottom side. Still a bit of a muted performance by him so far, but has of course contributed to the only kill T1 has put on the map just yet. Doran getting some plates here towards his bottom side, still about a minute and 10 seconds. left on those plates, so able to get that extra money, certainly going to be good. Lucid just flipped over the wall, so doesn't have that ability at this point in time. Avoids the deadly flourish, though, as he flashes over the wall. Owner goes in, but Barrel is right there already. The curtains are going to get cold, as now Lucid still trying to escape. I don't know whether Barrel is going to be quite as lucky, though, as he realizes he has to stick around, and that will spell his death. So a little bit of an overextension, and this is something that they were talking about on the space. The fact that DK just try to take more than they have the right to take.
Yeah, and Barrel dies for the sins of Lucid, flash down on the Neferi, and you know, when it's a Neferi who's a character who's so slippery, so hard to pin down, and you still have to sacrifice someone to get away, that's when you know you were really overextended.
Yeah, that's definitely a bridge too far. As T1 now with so much vision here towards the top side of the map as well. Rift Arrow going to be up in 1 minute and 15. That could really help slingshot T1 into a better position in this game. So we're going to check it out one more time. And it was just Lucid a little bit too far forward. Has to use everything and the kitchen sink in order to escape the curtain call. So difficult to get out of the way from.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe Barrel could have found an angle to flash, but I think he died anyway, so saves the summoner.
Yep.
A lot of that recently from Barrel, just like, okay, I'm going to go down, no point using the summoner, and I think sometimes we have players who are like willing to throw down and try everything to live, and I think can often be a bit of a mistake, so still have that summoner available.
I think Barrel sees deaths as a positive. That means I'm doing things.
Yeah, you know, he has been a little bit known to do that.
Yep. And also, there was a Herald fight coming up in a minute's time, and so having the flash available so you can get on top of, you know, Faker or even Doran or Owner or anyone like that with a flash and the Shield of Daybreak, that could be a pretty good.
It's 100% the right call to save it and have that ready and available. But all flashes available across the board for everyone, so I mean, the fact we have the Dragon and the Herald, big time to set up some potential fights. You know, there is still a gold lead for D+, but we look at where the gold lead is in terms of items. Everyone has their one-item spike. The only person who doesn't really is Barrel, is Carrier rushed that locket instead of finishing his boots, so maybe a bit of an advantage there, but you know, even when you have like an extra pickaxe for aiming, it's not really going to make that much of a difference compared to completed items, so I think both teams on roughly even footing going into this one.
I would say so. And aiming as well, going for a more physical build this time around, does make a little bit of sense. Means that I'd like to sort of change my assessment of the composition a little bit more, because I just don't like AD Kai'Sa that much. Especially in a composition like this where he's up against a lot of champions you do not want to be in melee range of.
I will say though, when you're playing with double AP solo laners, I think it does make sense.
Oh, you have to do it, right? But it just means that the Kai'Sa value isn't going to be as high because you don't have the poke value from it. Things like this as you move later into the game.
I think it's one of those things where the item spikes come in a bit later. You know, we're talking more like 3 items, whereas normally Kai'Sa's pretty strong on 2. But at that point, like late in the game, she's really going to shred.
And anything with health damage is just going to do a lot. You have a lot of attack speed. Just burn through targets. Not necessarily some true tanks, but that won't matter as aiming. Still going to go in, even though it is relatively early. And the Void Seeker also going to be able to help out there, winning out in the trade. Bit of a cannon off here in this mid lane, but it's aiming that just secures his. Carrier moves over, finds Barrel. But, they're just breaking each other's stuff, so it's going to be fine. And things have slowed down here a little bit. As I say that, they speed back up again. Barrel getting engaged on here. Good crash down as he's just looking to try and escape. And maybe this is why the flash was left all down. As Lucid really wanted to secure his Raptors, he does do so. And T1, they just get a flash out of Luna. And will move this Dragon. A lot of vision available here. Showmaker on that top side of the map with teleport in hand. Doran going back home now. Lucid well aware of what's going on here, but I just don't know whether DK is going to have a way in. As I say that, Lucid just blast cones his way into the pit, and Owner is going to be able to stun him. The front flip gets him over, but that means the Dragon definitely goes into the hands of T1. Equalizer goes down, not really doing too much. So an evening out of the Drakes. Another Earth, Wind, and Fire. We had one yesterday, and we have another one here today. Brilliant. You love to see it.
It's like both teams doing a lot of poking and prodding, trying to find little advantages and translate them into more, and that chunk onto Barrel and the flash being burned was pretty big, allowed T1 to get the Dragon, but then D+, kind of force them away so they can at least get the Herald as a consolation prize. The mid tower, thanks to the pressure Showmaker had earlier on, is low enough where Herald with a bit of damage would be able to take it down.
Yeah. It's a big one. Now Faker actually able to put on a lot of pressure here towards his bottom side, but Showmaker is going to answer that. Spidey sense is tingling there as Faker is going to be able to back away.
This gives a pressure towards the top side. You can see a little concern that someone might turn up, so they do back away. But I think one of the things with a play like that from Showmaker is when you're moving towards Faker in the bot lane, you know they're going to have vision in the river because they just took the dragon there. So, you know, maybe a little bit ambitious for that, but he will find his place in the bot lane and just hold that wave.
Yep. Kind of interesting. Our Gold King is Gold Kinging. I just feel like aiming hasn't really done all that much this game, but he is like almost 20 CS up. That extra kill, of course, from the previous skirmish, but he's 750 gold in the lead. So they've been funneling good old aiming as they have done in the past. Let's see whether it's actually going to work out for them. I think this Kaiser is going to be really important later and later into the game.
I mean, especially since this was a game where we had a pretty late first dragon. Both teams have a dragon apiece. I could see it going to the later stage of the game, right? The goal will be even as well, so
I think every one of these mountain drakes is going to be so important as well. I mean, T1 has a Jhin. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to cut through if there's a triple stack of mountains on DK. So we could have a lot more action in this game, and I like that.
And I think it's just going to time for aiming to get stronger and stronger. The time spike coming in soon is big, but 3 is really where he's going to take off. And now looking to herald the mid tower. This won't kill it, but they should be able to finish it off with some mortars. Yeah.
Beautifully done. Faker is going to try and return the favor, heading down towards his bottom side. No feats of strength, of course, but first Turret Blood going over to DK going to be an important one there.
I had to TP out.
Yeah, Faker will set up a turret of his own, and will look to take down this wave. And I think maybe he's just dead. He's lost the ability to do the old...
Nice.
Okay, over the wall, that's very cute. Malignant's on the floor, and they just have to back away.
It was slick from Lucid to dodge on the divide, but Faker is slicker, manages to help play that one.
And I think DK were just really scared that the cavalry was coming in. They've ganked Faker too many times to know that if you don't insta-kill him, it could really be a bad time. And she is on top of a ward here as well, so T1 know exactly what they're up against. Aiming, pushing out this mid-wave once more. And Solarflare going to connect onto Owner. Zenith Blade to try and chain this CC, but the Magnus Storm is good from Carrier. Untargetable is Lucid, but he has to use everything to try and get out, and it does not work. Oh dear. Sometimes Zenith Blade in, and it is just not the right call, as now the Otacon going to get taken, and T1 really getting out to a fantastic lead off the back of just Faker's phenomenal moves in the bottom lane, and an overextension again from DK.
It's a very weird play for D+ to go for in that situation. You know, Showmaker's TP wasn't quite available, Faker's was, and very unforced. You know, I think this was a great outplay by Faker, and that's completely fine. But it's the play afterwards that I'm really wondering about, because this was so unforced. They know T1 were around the top side. They know they have vision. Maybe we're hoping the recalls had already come through. Yeah. But it just looks so silly from our perspective. And again, Showmaker just recalled, doesn't have TP yet. Faker does. There was no way they were winning that fight. It just feels very unforced. And now T1 able to pick up the Atacam buff and found themselves a 1,000 gold lead.
That's a big one. So now T1, it's not even, so they have a slight gold lead, but it feels even more than that now with Otacon layered on top of it. Showmaker going to be eating some honey fruit. And a setup for this dragon is going to be the next fight. I think DK not out of this game by any means. They have to make some better decisions. Maybe just channel what they were doing earlier in the game, where they were making a lot of reserved choices and just, you know, suffocating T1 as best they could. That was working. Let's go back to that, perhaps.
They're finding angles to get some tower damage here. Oh, she was struggling now.
Yep, Doran in a much better spot as he flashes in and returns the favor. The turret will do a fair bit of damage there, and in fact, yeah, Doran does indeed die. But now we've got another fight breaking out. Beryl, once again, just gonna be dead. Solarflare looking a little celebratory as it hits absolutely nothing. And T1, they get the better end of it, even though it was a 1-for-1 as far as the top laners were concerned. Losing Beryl going to be a big deal because that should spell this dragon going on over to T1 without DK being able to do anything about it.
Starting to feel pretty rough for D+, considering how good this game started as well. Starting to fall behind and potentially losing a game like this feels so bad with how good it started. And here, Doran finds an angle on a Shiwu, doesn't have the cooldowns available to fight, and ultimately Doran just destroys the Rumble so quickly. That flash to follow as well. Really well played.
Yep. and then walks up, and so therefore dies to the turret. You can go right.
I did not
just
see that.
Just letting him know. That's fine. Beryl could also have just not died in that.
I didn't.
Well, hindsight is 20/20.
That play, that solo kill was pretty hype, and then I didn't see.
All right, Beryl's in again. Lucid is there watching again, and Beryl's dead again.
The never change game, I feel like, for Doran and Beryl.
Yeah.
Beryl is just playing like a psycho, racking up the most deaths in the game, and Doran finds this play.
That is like the epitome of an unforced error. You know?
Yes.
That did not have to happen. I think he expected that minion was actually going to take a turret shot or two. But unfortunately does not happen. Grand Starfall goes down as Sheer is just going to get swept back, and will do a fair bit of damage here to Ona on the outset, as now Gumyushi also in a little... Carrier just being a as Lucid realizing that perhaps he's also overextended, and barrels out of the gate once again. Okay, it's time to die. Once more. As these health bars, these health bars are so incredible. If Beryl can actually get in there, Solar Flare is back up again, and he throws it down, not going to find anything, but he's holding them in position. The Eclipse wears off. Beryl is certainly killable, but so are T1 as Doran's teleported in, and oh my goodness, this Gwen is so scary. 15 seconds till Shiu's back up again. And it's a 4v5. In goes Carrier, but doesn't really find the angle, and now Showmaker with all that mobility, looking to see what he can get done. Untargetability good there from Lucid, but Gumyushi, he lands the bullets, Faker goes golden, and DK melts like butter in the microwave. T1 just destroy them.
Beautiful team fight from T1, baiting out D-push, Carrier going in, not committing ability use, just trying to force out the aggression from D+ and Faker at the end with that Seeker's Arm Guard getting so much value. T1 just playing with the food there.
Yeah, T1, that recoup was just so incredibly impressive. You get around Doran, who has that full health bar, and DK, they could smell blood in the water, and it just wasn't T1's. It was, in fact, theirs. As this starts it all off, and
I think Shiva might be a little bit sick of seeing the Pantheon all come down.
Yeah.
And then here, this one's pretty cool because Carrier looks to try and threaten Showmaker, forces the ult, doesn't actually connect. I think he was going for the flip, actually. I thought he was just baiting him out, but doesn't find it. But then the Jin will get so much value here, and Faker, the Seeker's Arm Guard at the end. So much value.
Yeah, hits every single bullet. And T1 lose absolutely no one for it. And so DK, well and truly on the back foot now. They augment this Infernal Drake with the first of the mountains and everything coming up. T1 getting one. It looks like the woes of DK have not ended just yet. It felt like things were going to be all right. And it's since not necessarily been the case.
I feel like a game like this almost feels worse because...
Yeah, because you're on blue side.
Well, not just that, but it started so well.
Yeah.
It started in a really good position, If this is the sort of game where if you go to game 2 and you fall behind, you're instantly going to be thinking the series is doomed. The fact that you had this advantage in this one, you were playing it well, and then just a couple of fumbles, and remember, now you're 5,000 gold down.
Shiu's really had a bit of a rough mid to late game, right? But he started it off with a solo kill.
Yeah.
Everything, like you say, was doing well. We had Lucid chasing Owner out of his jungle, winning out in that early game situation, and it has meant absolute. Siege is continuing to Baron and getting to work here. As Equalizer goes, flash in from Beryl, gets the cleanse out from Gumyushi. His Carrier going down lower and lower. The Max Storm not going to save him there. There's some untargetability from Lucid, will not save him here either, as it's a 1-for-1 in the end. And now Doran is rotating over. The needlework is so scary as once again, he's under the turret. Once again, he's dead under the turret, as aiming not going to be able to stick around though. So with the health bar advantages, Ona? Okay,
a little deep.
Okay, that's a choice. You can't go through that base gate, but that's okay. He's able to wait things out, and the rest of T1 will join. So
that's just aura.
That was a lot of aura, and I think Showmaker could feel it. As the inhibitor going to be the next to fall here, as T1, they're pretty good at this, closing out these games.
Yeah,
exactly. That's ticking down. They see the orb fly across their heads. Let's see what she can actually get done here. Bullet comes on through. Everyone's slowed down apart from Faker, but I don't think she is going to be able to find too much more there. Voidseeker going to connect, but there is no killer instinct. So no more teleports, no more silly stuff.
Could that be enough to get the Dragon, though? You know, very late recalls coming out from T1. Maybe a window to sneak in. Like, Lucid taking the red here, a little bit concerned. Oh, they find Carrier.
Yeah, Carrier just crashes down over the wall.
He is rather tanky.
He is indeed.
I think they've missed the window. I'm not sure if there was a window. It was a very small window, but they've definitely missed it.
Yeah. They didn't go through the window. They did manage to secure their red buff, so there is at least that. And T1 going to come on over and look for Soul Point. DK, I mean, they could theoretically fight for it, but I just don't even think that's going to be a worthwhile opportunity. 3 items like you were talking about, a thing to watch out for on aiming, but I feel like it's too little and it's probably too late.
Yeah, the problem is, you know, there's 3 items across the board for T1.
I'm going to connect there onto Doran, and Showmaker has to try and find a way out as, the deadly flourish! That was beautiful from Gumayushi. He has to now walk off the red carpet as Beryl. Look at Doran, the Magnet Storm's gorgeous! Carrier sacrifices himself for it though, and now they're looking for even more. Over the wall they go. Doran is so low, Guma's so low, but it doesn't matter because they get a clean ace, only losing Carrier for it. And T1 will now look to finish the game.
D-Plus go for an attempt there. You know, they managed to find a kill onto the support, but nothing more. They don't have to follow through with Showmaker dead, and with this much of a deficit, it was a tall order anyway. T1 managing to hold strong after, you know, some troubles, a little bit of troubles in the early game, a very convincing finish game.
Absolutely beautifully done by T1, and it was just the fact that they held it together, right? It looked like things were snowballing out of control, then one overextension around the Krug camp. It seared into my brain. Lucid just a little bit too far up. Beryl gets that first death out of his system, gets the taste for it, and then it's all downhill from there.
I think, you know, it's a combination of T1 being ruthless when punishing these errors, but there were definitely a couple of unforced errors. There was definitely a couple of moments where D+ was aggressive when they didn't need to be and instantly paid for it. So I think T1, zero hesitation coming out of the early game.
Yeah.
Didn't ever feel like they were in a position where they were nervous and really started for the mid-game onwards to set that pace.
And now I think it'll come down to whether DK can actually bounce back. And this is a huge test for this team because they haven't necessarily been known for it, especially when things aren't looking good in the DK camp, right? It's getting those spirits back up again that's going to be so important here. She did still do a fair bit of damage, but look at this. The damage spread is so for T1.
Damage isn't everything, but I think the damage difference between the mid and jungle, what mid and jungle is at the moment, I think it kind of tells a bit of a story. The Pantheon Azir that came out for Faker and Ona getting a lot of value.
Yeah, and giving over those 2 champions was a risk and one that did not pay off for DK. Thankfully, it's best of 3. They have another opportunity. We'll see whether they can pick up a win as we go to a short break. Then the space is going to break down game number 1. We'll have game number 2 of our Saturday Showdown.
한번 돌릴만 할 것 같아. 나 공 한번 돌릴만 할 것 같아. 할만해. 3렙공이야 나. 로엔이 다 밀어내면 할 것 같아. 왜 아리? 공 있어. 나 맞추긴 했거든.
가네오야?
아래
빨리
잡았나?
가. 여기 나쁘지 않은데.
테레토.
와나
와나
앞에.
와나.
와나. 이거 좋다 좋다 앞라인 앞라인. 좋다 잘 걸었어. 럼블 파이사 맞아야 돼 파이사. 좋아. 끝나겠다 이거.
나이스.
나 탑으로 그냥 막을게.
There were many times in the mid lane where things looked a little shaky for Faker. Showmaker was trying to make some plays, but in the end, the amount of, I guess, attention that he absorbed ended up being the way that T1 got tempo back in the game and got the win here in game number 1 of our Saturday showdown. D got alongside Wolf and Woodid to break down that last one here, and it was a good start here for D+, but just weren't able to convert it.
And I think a lot of people will say D+ threw this game or made some big, huge errors that tossed it away, but I think it was just T1 playing the map better in general. I think T1 playing team fights well, but obviously having control over the map, the strong side laning champion like the Azir is going to do wonders for you. And I just feel like T1, there was some rocky starts at the beginning of the season. Now they're playing as a 5-man unit incredibly well together. They were the better team in game 1.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I really like the draft as well. I can see the direction they really wanted to put. And also, their early game was really great. I think it's just only T1 being T1 and Faker being Faker. So it's not really like DK playing bad. It's just T1 getting better and better.
Well, you know, it's really easy for the guy like myself to watch the game and say, this was a play that didn't quite work out. However, we have a former pro, a former champion, still a champion in our hearts, Woodid to break down tempo here that T1 were able to take.
So yeah, DK is trying to use the header to break the mid turret here, but I just want to show how T1 used this tempo. So Faker already knew that they're going to lose the mid turret because of the header. So he's trying to get the tempo back with his side lane pressure, which is really smart because you cannot really defend the turret on the mid lane because they're using the header. So DK is trying to attack the Azir, but the reason why Faker went to the bot lane is because that he already knew that he can actually survive this gank. So he's kind of absorbing the pressure from the DK. Meanwhile, T1's jungle and support is getting the full vision control on the top side for his Gwen on the top side. So Rumble is now isolated and turret is gonna like automatically fall. I mean, he used the equalizer to defend the minion wave, but he's gonna lose the turret eventually, right? And then, so they use the tempo of the bot lane, DK, so they cannot really get the vision back. But Beryl really wanted to defend their play on the top side, but it's not gonna work out because you're not Fury and Ari was bot lane. So they already had the full information on the top side, T1, because of the Faker. Faker absorbing a lot of ganks on the bot lane, that meant a lot, and this play is not gonna work because all the information that T1 has on the top lane is massive, and this is not gonna work whenever you're mid lane and when you don't have the tempo, when you have no vision control on the top side. It's not gonna work. It's
critically
never gonna work.
Showmaker doesn't have a teleport for this play. Faker did. They should have been able to track that. Faker wasn't the main character of the actual play itself. Like, they wouldn't have won it even if Faker didn't have teleport, but you have to keep all these things in mind. You know, Bengi talking about some of the overextensions as well end up being kind of a thing here as well, where they try to collapse onto a Pantheon. And it's just this kind of macro play and reads where you're, yeah, sure, you got the mid turret, you got Herald, but you lost everywhere else. You ended up losing 2 turrets in side lane, then tried to force a fight and fail.
And Atlas and Ox did a great job explaining the game's not over yet, but it's these types of moments that D+ have been putting themselves in. They get themselves a decent early lead, and then they just throw it away. They throw it away, not into a losing point, but into a state where the other team could come back, and in this case, T1 did so.
So this fight looks like it might be promising, right, for D+. Carrier's already used his ultimate. Everyone's super low on health. Even Faker has taken a bunch of damage. But look at how challenging it is to actually chase this as D+. So if you just watch with the Observer client, you watch when you're sitting at home, it looks like, oh man, this should be really easy. Watch what happens when they try to chase here. Lucid and Aiming are like, ooh, they're going to go full away, so let's try to cut them off. So you see Lucid goes up here and tries to wrap all the way around, whereas because T1 knows there's no wave here for D+, and there's no vision, they can actually consolidate as 5 here and start picking the D+ players apart. I think D+ had to try to make something happen here. I think they had to chase. Without information, without vision here, the engage is super lackluster. They're very split. Lucid and Aiming and Showmaker trying to chase there on the top side meant that D+ actually don't collapse the way they want to. Doran gets the TP with the extra time that's bought here, and T1 just runs circles around them and outplay them. Great use of vision, great use of the fact that they had the wave completely controlled there on the bottom side. And still, it's a playable fight here, it looks like, for D+. They have to force this. But again, T1 rather, better set up. And the Zonia's here from Faker as well. Fantastic.
I think that was great breakdown, and I think especially from Beryl, he didn't need to like rush the play. They already knew that they're in a position where they cannot escape. So if Beryl just hold his skills and just wait for Nafiri and Ari to come, and I think they had the better chance. But we could clearly see that why Beryl and DK is struggling, because they're not really synced up for the fight whenever the skill needed to set it up for them.
Yeah, the toughest part about all that was Chu, who died at the beginning of that play, had teleport. If you wait 5 more seconds and the coordination's there, he can come back in. You now have an opportunity to really turn that fight.
So like all I want to say is that it's like a playing chess. You cannot really think about, oh, Faker is going bot, so we can attack Faker. You gotta think about the next situation. If we go bot side, we're gonna lose top turret. So oh yeah, we cannot go bot side. Let's give up bot turret and then defend the top lane. It's like a playing chess, right?
I really want to see D Plus try to target Faker and draft him, and that's my real final thoughts here. I think that's your best way to maybe get ahead in this series, bring it to a game 3.
Love it here. Wolf's Gambit, Wadid's Gambit here. Let's see if D Plus are able to find a Gambit to get themselves back in this series and stop this slide before its 6-game losing streak, or will T1 extend theirs to 4 games 1? Let's send it over to Atlas Knox.
Thank you so much, T-Gon. Yes, I am worried about Beryl's Gambit. That's the real Gambit that I'm thinking about, because he really did start falling over quite a few times later and later into that game. And I loved Wadid's breakdown, because you really got to see everything from the tools that DK had, and they had a complete lack of vision. It was entirely a guess from DK. You saw them back away from Faker. It was 2 versus 1. He had his Sun Disc set up, yeah, but they expect Owner and Carrier to be on the bottom side of the map. They had no idea Carrier was there until he magnet stormed out of that brush. And I think it's guesses like this that puts DK in really rough situations, because if you have the vision control, if you have the information, you can make a calculated decision instead of just like, yeah, they're probably there.
Maybe it was a calculated decision, but
they might have been doing math on stream. That's dangerous.
oh god, that's the mistake.
Yeah, it's a rough one to do. This isn't though. This is Wolf getting it right here with the approach for D+. They're going to take away the Victor, certainly an important one, and the Lilia to be removed from Owner. Yes, it was Owner's Lilia that really destroyed DK in that game number 3. Last time these two teams met, and I think it makes a lot of sense to be taking that one away. Xin and Vi, the obligatory ban. Let's see what the final one is going to be here. Maybe a Jace, just get rid of that so she cannot pop off.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is if you ban the Jace, maybe he feels more inclined to pick up the Ambessa, and he's had fantastic games on that.
True.
So they do end up banning the Jace. I think Talia being open is obviously a big priority. Varus also available as well. A lot of options right now. And no matter what you take for the side of D+, T1 are going to have something good in return. Looks like they will go for that Varus. I think T1 should take the Talia when it moves over to them.
Yeah, I think Talia is almost higher priority than this champion right here. See what T1 does decide to do. There's no Talia Pantheon available this time. We saw have some fantastic success yesterday. The Varus certainly going to be high priority, denying that one from Gumayushi, also a... But let's see what T1's response is going to be. And the problem is, I don't know whether they've banned quite enough here. As you mentioned, the Talia, that's an obvious one. But now where does Owner go alongside it? Maybe we're just gifted an Owner Lee Sin game. Imagine that. Oh, this is good news for D+ fans.
The 4-loss streak on, it's like, I'm going to break it. I'm going to break it. Yeah, if you're a D+ fan, this is what you were hoping to come through. And also not, I mean, decent setup with a CC, but not like the strongest, most intimidating pairing. Talia Pantheon sounds a lot scarier than Talia Sejuani.
Yeah.
And now for D+, looking at the Rise for Showmaker here as a solid mid option.
Yep, Blind Rise is something that we have been worried about in the past, but it's not blind, it's into Talia, so this makes a little bit more sense. No dashes on a Rise, so you don't need to worry about the rocks.
Yeah, and wondering what we'll see for Lucid here. I would assume a jungle pick comes through. There's things like the Poppy's open, the Viego, the Wukong. All picks, I could imagine them picking up in this situation.
I do like the Wukong. Wukong angle is kind of fun. Does mean that Xiu's pick is going to go a little bit wide, but they're listening to us, Orcs. They are thinking that the Wukong could certainly be a choice. Wukong into Sejuani is a tale as old as time. We've seen it in the LCK many, many times. Sort of the understandable answer, but Lucid, like, during his utterly dominant streak in Challenger, Wukong was at the height of his popularity, so utilized it a lot to get a lot of victories.
Yep. And here you have choices. You can either pick something for Doran, or you can pick an AD carry to match for Guma. They end up looking towards the Camille. We've seen this rise up a bit in priority, and also, you know, a good matchup into the Ambessa. We often saw when Ambessa first came out, Camille was a pick that was being used as an answer into it, and obviously Ambessa's a bit weaker than when she came out.
Yep.
So kind of twofold. One, you're securing a pick that pairs well with Sejuani, it works well for T1, but two, also making that Ambessa pick feel uncomfortable, and immediately going to start banning away top laners with that Jax taken off the cards. Now for D+, I think you start to target the AD carry pool. Xayah going to be taken away from Guma immediately.
Yeah, this is, it feels like a bit of a gambit. I think picking up Guma Yushi's pick would have been the safest option there for T1, but this is kind of cool, you know, picking the Camille and then protecting it as best you can. Of course, Poppy, kind of difficult matchup there as well, as you can steadfast presence the hookshot, and it is pretty telegraphed. The Jax, we understand this one. This has been the classic matchup. Now it's like Shiu can go towards Fiora if you want to get into that sort of territory, but it looks like Camille's going to be pretty safe there towards the top side as the Alistar immediate lock-in.
That R4 Alistar is so common that we end up seeing that come through. Interestingly, I opted to ban the Lucian instead and left that one available. And the thing is, you're never going to have too much fun on the side of D+ playing into T1's composition if you're playing an engaged support, specifically because of that Talia. Makes a lot of champions' lives hell, or no, I do not like the Rakan here.
The good old Rakan into Talia. Happens a lot.
Cassante did get buffed slightly. Not
Okay.
sure it's enough really to feel positive about. And also, Cassante, I feel like even when Cassante was really strong, Talia was one of those champions who actually held him accountable. Talia and Camille, you actually take damage on this champion when you're playing into those.
Yeah.
So a little concerning. And I really hope it's, I mean, Wukong Rakan is a cool combo, but into Talia, into Camille, you only get exploded if you pick Rakan here. So please, I'm hoping it is not the Rakan.
It depends what Beryl's goals are. But the Braum is going to come in, so his goals may not be die over and over again, because if that was his goal, then the Rakan would have been locked in. The MF just going to be picked face up into a Braum. Doesn't necessarily feel fantastic, but the ways this composition can flank on T1's side means that the door value, even if you are just picking MF straight up into it, is still not going to be that high.
Yeah. I mean, also, what often happens in pro play is that the Braum is a little bit under-leveled compared to, like, solo queue. Also, we see a lot of Braums not putting points in their shield. Very important. So if you end up, you know, let's say you have Camille ult aiming and Beryl jumps in front to block, he will just die.
Yes.
He will just die. Because as much as the wall does a lot to stop it, if you're behind, if you're down at levels, which, you know, supports in pro play are, you will go down. So I think T1, I think what they got for the top side was fantastic. The Alistar, really strong pick as well. I think D+ were in danger of really hamstringing themselves. I think they didn't do that, but, you know, I still think there's some question marks. Playing into Talia, which has been such a valuable pick on this patch as well. And Cassante, I'm really not sold on. I don't think the buff was enough.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the whole Cassante situation, especially when if the rocks are down and you press your all-out button and go through a wall and you can just, like, eat all of the rocks and then die in the 1v1 on the other side of the fight, it can feel a little bit bad. But we'll have to trust Shiu that he knows what he's doing in this matchup. It just really felt like T1 had taken away a lot of the tools used to try and keep this Camille down. So Doran actually, I feel, is going to be a bit of a main character moving into this game number 2 as T1 poised for a 2-0 over DK here in our Saturday Showdown. See whether they can do it. All right, T1 fans in full voice here in Lowell Park, but you could feel some of the desperation on the DK side at the same time. We'll see whether that is going to pay off as we get into it. Faker on his Talia, a pick that he has found a lot of success on in the past. Not necessarily in his like top 10 most iconic picks, but those ones are champions he's been playing a whole lot of times for a very, very long time. So still going to be a good one. And I think this season as well, his Talia has looked good.
did just land the full threaded volley on the Showmaker. Kind of stopped moving after that.
Yeah.
Seemed like I could see Rise sigh. He didn't, but it felt like I could see him sigh.
I could kind of feel him flex. He's like, I can take it. You know, that's what I felt.
That's a positive way to look at it.
Yeah.
Like Beryl would definitely do that.
Yeah, he did. He did that over and over again in the last game, and then they lost. That's kind of how that one went. And that is not a criticism, because of course I do not actually understand what makes Beryl the way he is. Maybe these deaths in some of these games are why he's a two-time world champion. As headbutt out, Gumayushi's still going to be taking a bit of damage here as Beryl does find that first Winter's Bite. And the second one as well, this time eaten by the cow. As Aiming and Beryl still needing to deal with this wave, Gumayushi doing a good job just focusing that one down to get to that level 2 as quickly as possible.
Got to be a little bit cautious in this matchup as T1 bot lane, because playing into Braum typically in extended fights, you do lose out because of passive stacking, but particularly MF Alistair into Varus Braum, the longer the trade goes, the longer the fight goes, the worse you lose it.
Yep.
You have the passive for that initial burst from Guma. Short trades, poke trades like that, perfect. That's exactly how you want it to go. If it turns into an all-in, it does get a bit messy. I will say Ignite for Carrier versus Heal for Beryl does give a bit of advantage in the all-in, but I don't think it's really going to be enough unless it's a big misplay from D+'s bot lane.
Huh. So 2025 has not been a good year for the Cassante.
Yeah, I mean, he's been nerfed so many times, and the buff he got in return, which I believe was like his W damage,
Yeah, that doesn't feel like it.
I don't think it's enough to really change the game. And especially, you know, maybe there's a scenario where Cassante is really good and you're like, okay, this feels phenomenal, but into Camille, I think Camille's going to have a fine time, particularly into this composition with Talia, who just, the Unraveled Earth really chokes out what Cassante wants to do, which is dash all the time, and also she actually can cut through him.
Yeah.
Often with her building like Leandri's.
I can clarify what the buff was. It was 5 base damage to Pathmaker. W.
Wow.
And so, doesn't really do all that much. As Ona looking to grab himself a scuttle. Things being quiet in the jungle, as we've seen thus far. And even though there are some difficulties towards that top side, I do think that this Wukong is going to be incredibly important in this game for DK. I think the team fighting for them as well is going to be very, very strong. And there's not a massive amount of range on T1's side, right? So this could be a possibility. We have to remember that as well, like with the Cassante, there is the fact that you can drag the Camille out of a Hextech ultimatum with your ulti, and that can help cancel it. So the setup isn't quite as good if it is just onto this top laner. So there is that. There's the understandable reason as to why he picked it. It's just not sure whether it's exactly the greatest. There's good flash there from Aiming. As Beryl also able to get out of the way and puts up the door in a really good spot. And they're even able to turn this. A lot of value from that piercing arrow, but both flashes now on cooldown, and Gumayushi holds on to his. Good news for T1.
There could not be a clearer indicator that they didn't know Ona was there than when Beryl jumped in.
Wait, no, but this is the thing. Is that an indicator of that?
Any other player, I'd say yes.
Exactly, because you watched him in the last game.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's all right, Lucid. Coming on over, seeing whether he has an avenue in. It looks like the answer is going to be no. And Amy, you can see with the lethal tempo as well, so going for more of that on-hit version of the Varus. Over a ward goes Lucid once again, so the bottom lane understanding that they can continue to push forward for T1. This first Drake is going to spawn. It's going to be an Ocean, meaning that our Soul could be a good one. And shoot back up here towards the top side. Pulverize is going to connect there onto Amy. He's taking a lot of damage. Remember, no flash. Has to cleanse. As Carrier throws down the late Ignite.
Yeah, Beryl actually out of mana, which is kind of hard to do in a form. If I'm being real, definitely a lot of Winter's Bite spam. Now the Hex Flash coming in.
Yeah, over the wall goes the double Pulverize. Make a Rain comes down as Gumayushi comes on over. The door is set up at first blood. Still goes over to the Misfortune. And Beryl, like you say, didn't have a whole lot of the blue stuff, but is now going to have to deal with another wave as Carrier finds yet another Pulverize. He will die, and Beryl is fine. And Gumayushi decided that he did not want to kill him.
All in Beryl's plan. He's the carry.
Yep. Showmaker is coming down towards his bottom side as well. As he realm warps in, he's got flash.
Kill, he's got cleanse.
Yeah. So Showmaker's still going to flash for it. Throws a Q, doesn't quite do enough damage. And so is going to trade his for a cleanse, which I would say in my little little book of conversions, that's not worth it.
Look, this is an assumption, and I'm not saying it's true, but I think it'd be very funny if he realm warps in, and he's like, what sums does the MF have? Barrel's like, no sums, no summoners at all.
Yeah.
Flashes, cleanses,
And immediately tilts.
grumbles a little bit.
Yeah.
Not saying that was the case, but it would be very, very... That happens all the time in solo queue when you junglers like, what sums does bot lane have?
Yeah, no sums, quick. You need to come, you need to come.
Go for the flash play in, and then they just flash out, and everyone dies. I was like, oh, no, they still had... They still had that.
Quid, it must have just come up,
Yeah, the lack of mana for Barrel means he saves his mana for his E, but doesn't have mana to Q as well. Guma flashes through the wall to kill, and it's just... This is just bad lane management from the side of D+. The fact that you have a scenario where Barrel's out of mana and aiming's that low shouldn't really be happening.
Yeah. Still, we have to really point out that T1 did get the much better end of that trade. They not only get first blood, but they also keep Gumushi around as aiming died, so he isn't able to pick up experience and gold and all that sort of stuff. And so as you can see, 400 gold lead for the MF going to be far more important than Beryl having 140 ahead of Carrier. As DK thinking about going for a contest, but I don't know about it. As Seismic Shove going wide, Carrier comes in, gets a pulverize onto Lucid, who does get the decoy off. And now Doran just said, nope, you do not have a jungler. They also take down the dragon on the back end as aiming. He is just going to get evicted from this area. No flash, no chance. And Gumayushi even able to walk on over, give him a love tap, take him down. Shu on this top side of the map is at least trying to get something back, but I don't know whether it's going to be enough to make that play worthwhile.
Great moves from Doran to come down there. As soon as they saw the fifth member, D+ knew they were cooked, but no summoners on that bot lane meant they were never going to be able to get out of that situation. And just, again, it just feels a little bit messy from D+, a little bit misguided. The deficit isn't that big so far in this game, but T1 looking a lot cleaner so far.
Yeah. And Gumayushi looking great on this Misfortune as well. So we're going to have a look at it one more time.
It's like they're setting up this fight. T1 are grouped together and Showmaker's at a complete distance. And also just, you know, question mark things coming out on the top lane. Like, oh, where's Doran? Oh, there he is. Yeah, and because they don't have flashes on Barrel or aiming, they just all die.
And yes, you see, aiming having the difficulty of not being able to walk very fast to get out of seismic shoves. So Faker able to pull him back in, get another kill for Gumayushi to make that lane even more difficult for this Varus. As T1 looking to take down these grubs at the same time, they will be one objective away from picking up feats of strength in this game if that does in fact come in. Showmaker looking to try and defend as Gumayushi Carrier are set up. Owner is taking the grubs. They're just taking all sorts of things all the time. And T1's lead, I think, is only going to extend from this point on as Lucid looking to try and at least get a crab, consolation crab there for the Wukong. She's looking to go a little bit aggressive. Even has time to go back and get the cannon. You like to see that. And Carrier, I feel like he's everywhere this game. As the Cyclone comes in, can Carrier actually get in there to headbutt Lucid under the turret? And he does, in fact, do so. He flashes away. Realm Warp going to come on through. That gets rid of Beryl. So Beryl lives, and Lucid is very dead.
Feels desperate. You know, great move there from Carrier, hiding in the brush in between. Middle to spot, Lucid moving around, but it just feels like these plays they're going for desperation, really. Wasn't in position for follow-up to come through onto Guma. And Lucid just goes down. It seems like D+'s woes are just getting more and more dear.
Yes. It's not looking great. As she does get the knockback. That was a cute little play. Looks for the all-out angle, but Doran just able to use the ult. Gets back behind him, and Shu doesn't have that angle anymore. Still going to be able to get the ult out for basically free here. And so the Cassante looking pretty good at this point in time, at least.
He's going to hang it around for cover, but he has gone now.
So let's see how greedy Doran is going to be. As let's see the replay instead.
Yeah, so
Carrier's perspective.
I think it was an ambitious play, even if Carrier wasn't there. But Carrier being there just meant that there was no chance of it working. You know, Showmaker's not able to get into range, into position to follow up.
Yeah, it was beautifully done. Owner also over the wall with the Glacial Prison towards the end there, just to put the icing on the cake. Worked out very, very well. Good on top of the ward once again. They've been tracking this Wukong so effectively. It feels like T1, no surprises on the map for them whatsoever. Whereas DK are doing a lot of guesswork, and they have not been guessing correctly.
Oh no, they have not.
As Doran now, Trinity Force in hand. Gumiushi looking to lock down this bottom outer turret. And DK, I don't know whether they'll be able to get in, as Shiu's going to move down. Faker's in position though. Shiu desperately trying to get towards this turret. He takes a fair bit of damage. He's pretty tanky. And he gets over to the other side of the wall. Lucid going in. And
I'm not
Shiu
sure you
clears
wanna
out the
be-
wave. Yeah, now that he's here, Shiu's like, how do I get down? You know, it's like doing that mountain climbing where you climb up and you're like, wait a second. How am I supposed to figure out my way back? As Showmaker teleports in, and maybe that is the way he did it. Just asks his teammate to bring a ladder.
Just save him, just keep something.
Okay, chain of corruption going down. Remember, Doran doesn't have the ulti. They get the stun down onto Doran, but he's just quite tanky enough. And DK not going to be able to get the kill. Still, they get the flash, and that is important.
Really, the difference here is aiming not have that first time completed. If he had that Blade of the Rune King, I think Doran would have just been dead. But the deficits, the goal deficit, showing that, you know, even plays that make sense start to fail when you're lacking a bit of damage.
Well, speaking of an extra bit of damage, I think Faker certainly has it. As the threaded volley is coming down, we're going to stop watching that one as Lucid comes in, and the hook shot is so good from Doran. Bullet time comes down as well. Beryl almost just dead from that one, but they do manage to get the Camille, but at what cost? The answer is everything.
Easy cleanup from the side of T1. You know, T+ go for that initial play onto Doran when he steps forward, but here you've waited too much time. T1 have reset. They found a position where they can all collapse in, and it feels like D+ just blindly grabbing at whatever they can, and T1 slapping the hand away.
Yeah, slapping the hand away, and then the hand hits them in the head.
Yes.
Is kind of how it goes. As, yes, they do manage to kill Doran, but Beryl unable to stop Doran from being able to hookshot his way out. Gumiushi unanswered on the bullet time, and then just comes on over and auto-attacks them down. T1 just rotating more crisply, right? And you've got Shiu, yeah, he's in the mid lane, he's able to get like a plate or two, something like that, but the Cassante being 180 gold ahead just doesn't really mean anything at all.
Yeah.
I think the MF being 1.6k ahead at 13.5 minutes into the game is probably the more important thing.
It's looking pretty scary. It's looking pretty bad. And also, you know, you have a Braum on your team. You're kind of relying on like the Wukong to be engaging, and Lucid is falling further and further behind. Like, look at the health bar of the Wukong compared to Sejuani.
Yeah.
You dive in as this Wukong, you're probably just dead immediately.
Well, Lucid is going to dive in, and just flash in dives.
Wow.
Like, why? Still, Showmaker and Shiu, they're going to come on over. All Out is going to be used to separate Ona from this fight, but he just gets back towards this collapse onto Showmaker, and Gumiushi, he comes down yet again. They've set the table for it, and they're now looking to grab these kills. Glacial Prison comes on through once more, but Shiu, pretty tanky, so isn't going to be dying just yet. In the meantime, Faker on that top side of the map is looking to take down this turret. Should be able to do so. Remember, first turret blood still on the cards. No feats of strength taken just yet. Is just one objective away here for T1. As 3,000 gold is still the lead. Faker still up here. Should be able to get this.
This is kind of what I was worried about after game one. Because game one, D+ had a lead, they had an advantage, managed to push it a little bit, and then they started to flounder, and T1 pulled back. This is a game though where T1 are the ones who led the charge, advantage, and it just doesn't even look remotely close.
Nope. I feel like the floundering is what started.
Yeah.
Instead of
And I mean,
what we got to.
It takes so much damage before the red even goes down. Like, maybe the thought process is, hey, we can collapse on them. Then commit to the fight. You know, you're dying for a red buff, and then you're opting into a 2v2 when you're behind, and then Kuma turns up as well. It's just... I think even D+, if the players were looking at this play, which undoubtedly they'll review, they won't have any justification. They'll be like, yeah, I don't know what we're doing either. It just really feels like they're a little bit lost right now.
It's looking like that. It's sort of been the tale of the week, to be perfectly honest. Loss against KT is not something many of us were expecting.
Weak like EA or weak like EE?
Both.
Yeah, I
Pick
think
one.
so.
Or just, yeah, do both. I think it's fine. Showmaker and Lucid going to see whether they can kill Faker. And Faker just skates away.
Yep.
could be something to transition into some sort of Artican play. As I say, that's
Let's
4
punish
minutes
Fake
away,
with a
so-
side lane. That's never failed before. That's
Nope.
that's always a solid strategy against T1. I'm sure he's all by himself and doesn't have the entirety of the Avengers ready to assemble the second something goes wrong.
The old Avengers or the new ones?
Both of them together.
Oh, all of them?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Rift Herald is just going to be secured here by T1. And Showmaker standing on a ward, that could be scary. Blast Cone here, it's an Infernal Soul, so we'll have a few extra Blast Cones. Sorry, Valdez. As T1 just trying to get even more control, just to make sure that Faker can very safely take this turret on this top side. As I've seen fights in this area happen before, as Beryl throws out an ulti for fun.
Yes, so engage form still not working hardly.
Yeah. He did hit 2 people with it. So there's that.
So you're saying it's not his fault?
There was no actual result.
Yeah, it wasn't a skill issue, it was a decision issue.
Yes, it was certainly one of those. It's okay, Lucid just clearing things out. And let's see where T1 are going to strike next. Just feels already like it's a circling of the drain. It's a 4,000 gold lead, and that is pretty considerable here for 17.5 minutes. And look at that, linear gold graph. If you were Tom or Coma, you'd be sitting backstage, you're like, yes, is right, boys. That's how we want to snowball a lead.
Yeah. And this could end up being winning the Sejuani for Ona, breaking that loss streak.
Yeah, this is the important thing on T1's side. What was it, 0-4?
Yep.
That seems crazy. As Hepapov on the barrel. Ona swings a flail at him as okay. Aiming gonna start this one up. He's already down very low. There's the flash forward. Can they actually kill Guma? Here's the question. The answer so far is no. They take down Beryl finally. They overextend far enough to kill the Misfortune, but now the rest of them are likely to go down. Doran just executes aiming underneath the turret, and she trying to escape. That blast cone direction was looking a little dicey, but he gives them the good old thumbs up as he exits. But they didn't need to kill Shiu to feel really good about how this fight goes, as Lucid is just running for the hills. And he will get out, but at what cost?
I'm not sure why Lucid didn't flash. I actually think, like, don't get me wrong, they probably would have lost that fight anyway. But if you get up the fight and Guma flashes your cycle,
Just kind of waiting for that angle as well. Yeah, flash not quite up.
wasn't quite available. Because if you look here,
Sun harusnya bintang 3 itu guys ya, Nathanku ya. Tapi kalau aku nggak ngekonsun, aku udah nusun dari tadi guys, bener kan? Ya kan? Kalau Sunku nggak bintang 2, aku udah pulang dari tadi guys. Tapi guys, plus minus lah ya teman-teman. Oke, terima kasih banyak semua yang sudah menonton. See you on the next stream. Sampai jumpa semuanya. Bye bye guys, thank you semuanya. Off dulu ya.